Bro, look at the... Hello, this is MemeAnalysis, and today I'm going to be looking at image viruses and memetic hazards. That is to say, images, sounds, a series of words that can kill you, or that can cause great bodily harm, illness, and so on, and sometimes invoke suicide especially. Some of the most famous creepypasta image viruses and sound viruses are smile.dog or dog.jpg, which is supposed to be an image taken of a dog, but it might have also started as the devil, because the real image is not able to be leaked out, otherwise, people would be killed. But that's a famous one, an image that lots of people share. And then the famous Lavender Town, in which the song was able to make people commit suicide. This seems to be a recurring theme. Chain emails are another example. Almost invitations to act out this mythical threat. You had to do this or that, or else you would die, or you had to do this or that, or somebody would die, and so on. There was this idea that words and media could reach over the screen, or reach over whatever medium, into your life and cause pain, suicide, and death. I think this is most famous in, movies about cursed tapes, like The Ring. Famously that a VHS tape was cursed and capable of killing the person who watched it. This seems to be one of the most successful urban legends of the 80s, for the same reason that creepypastas have images that can kill you now. I think it's a very entrancing idea. Another famous example, another urban legend, is the video game Polybius, which is like a stand-up arcade game, but as you played it, you went insane. And sometimes you'd kill yourself, and sometimes you'd kill other people. The idea was either that the government made it, or that the government ended up weaponizing it. That's another good way to look at it. Weaponized images, weaponized media. That is the real playground of people's minds. We've thought up all of these methods of killing and all these messy methods of death. But the most brilliant idea is that of the memetic virus, the image virus. You can kill with words, kill with sounds, and no cleanup. And that's why in fiction it often turns out to be like a terrorist weapon. It's a way of killing a whole lot of people, or affecting a whole lot of people with minimal effort. It's very little effort required. I can connect it to the past, even farther back as well. Of course, we have Lovecraft's famous descriptions of people driven mad by seeing things that were not meant to be seen, gods and unnatural entities. But we go even further back. We have Shakespeare. In Hamlet, Horatio warns young Hamlet not to go with the ghost of his father, out of fear that he would transform his shape and drive him mad with the horror of it. I think that is a very reasonable fear. The idea that sanity is some solid base, some established way of acting, I think it tends to be a defense mechanism and an illusion. In reality, we are really at the whims of our stimulus. And that is why I think people are frightened of the internet, and will continue to be frightened of the internet. The internet is a grave threat to the self, because it absolutely alters the nature of stimulus to the human mind, to the human brain. We could easily affect most of the civilized world with a single viral image. If it were something that, by chance, I'll explain later how it could work. If it did work in a single fell swoop, you could murder or incapacitate cultures and countries extremely easily. And to some degree, we're already capable of doing that through mimetic manipulation. It might not be killing you, it might not be driving you mad, but it might push you over the edge into denying what is real in front of you. How they work. The Basilisk is a short story by David Langford, and it's fantastic. It is the absolutely perfect illustration of this concept. And in fact, it became a meme that was spread about, a creepypasta called The Parrot, which is another pretty successful one, because it threatens madness and death after a certain period of time. It's not immediate death. Repeated viewings can do this. When we take Langford's Basilisk into account of a weaponized memetic virus, of an image virus, he actually gives us a few examples of people that have talked about a concept similar to it. So I thought that I would share it with you. This is from Langford's website. Is it true that science fiction authors predicted basilisks? Yes and no. The idea of unthinkable information that cracks the mind has a long SF pedigree, but no one got it quite right. William Gibson's Neuromancer, 1984, the novel that popularized cyberspace, is often cited for its concept of black ice, software which strikes back at the minds of hackers. But this assumes direct neural connection to the net. Basilisks are far more deadly because they require no physical contact. Much earlier, Fred Hoyle's The Black Cloud, 1957, suggested that a download of knowledge provided by a would-be helpful alien who has superhuman mental capacity could overload and burn out human minds. A remarkable near miss features in The Shapes of Sleep by J.B. Priestley, which imagines archetypal shapes that compulsively evoke particular emotions intended for use in advertising. Piers Anthony Macroscope, 1969, described the Destroyer sequence, a purposeful sequence of images used to safeguard the privacy of galactic communications by erasing the minds of eavesdroppers. The Comp.Basilisk community does not want ever again to see another posting about the hoary coincidence that Macroscope appeared in the same year and month as the first episode of the British TV program Monty Python's Flying Circus, with its famous sketch about the world's funniest joke that causes all hearers to laugh themselves to death. I think a few of those get really close. He's right about archetypal images being really close to image viruses, because already we get the connection between viruses and mimetic hazards and the archetypal images, symbols. These are, and I think in that way science fiction mystifies it to some degree by saying, oh, a computer can discover the image that could kill. I think it's more likely that in our nature there would be grave-threatening images that could induce such states. But I thought that I would add a really important supplement. One of the greatest philosophers and authors, William S. Burroughs, he talks about the idea that language is a virus. Not only that, but there's word virus, image virus, sound virus, and so on. And he wrote a book that teaches us essentially how to utilize these for whatever methods or whatever aims we choose. So I thought that I would read a bit from it and explain how an image virus, sound virus, mimetic virus would work if it were real. This is from the Revised Boy Scout Manual by William S. Burroughs, a book which was actually just released last year out of Genesis Porridge's audio tape archives. I think it's fantastic. Definitely not getting enough attention. The methodology in it is wild, and I think very potentially possible. So, if anybody wants to give it a try, let us know. To what extent can physical illness be induced by scrambled illness tapes? We take, for example, a sound and color picture of subject with a cold. Later, when subject is fully recovered, We take color and sound film of recovered subject. We now scramble the cold pictures and soundtrack in with present sound and image track. We also project the cold pictures on present pictures. Now we try using some of Mr. Hubbard's reactive mind phrases, which are supposed in themselves to produce illness. To be me, to be you, to stay here, to stay there, to be a body, to be bodies, to stay present, to stay absent. Well, we scramble all this in together and show it to the subject. Could seeing and hearing this sound and image track, scrambled down to very small units, bring about an attack of cold virus? I think it's very important that we get the element of literal memes, as in repetitive behaviors spread through sight. I mean, the very definition of a meme implies that it is viral, implies that it is capable of mass reproduction, and at that point of mass producing behaviors, sensations, and so on. The very definition of meme implies memetic hazard, implies virus. I have frequently spoken of word and image as viruses, or as acting as viruses. This is not an allegorical comparison. If we can infer purpose from behavior, then the purpose of a virus is to survive at any expense to the host invaded. So already there we see that image, word, and thus memetic viruses, they don't need to keep the host alive. They don't need to keep the person who views it alive to be spread. They exist to continuously be spread. They demand repetition, replication. So when you see a meme that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable or maybe seems threatening, as I've said before, there are some memes that are vital and living, threatening the individual. Take a look. Think about it. Read the Revised Boy Scout Manual and read David Langford's Basilisk. It will not disappoint, and hopefully my own speech and these will give you a greater insight onto memes. And remember, memes matter.